Jonathan Turley joins our discussion. Professor, your reaction?
Well, this was what we expected from the oral argument. Many of the justices, including Gorsuch, were raising real questions about the basis for declaring that TikTok has a free speech right to preserving their access to the United States. And many of the justices said, look, we're not controlling the content of speech. We're just really focusing on the ownership of the company. That's a different type of matter. And the justices had some division on that point. Some were still concerned, including Gorsuch, over the free speech implications of this type of action. But the general thrust of the oral argument was that they would let this ban stand. And that's going to kick this into the political realm, or back there, where President Trump will have to address it. You know, these justices tend to view these types of questions as something that should be resolved in the legislative and executive branches. They try not to get ahead of their skis on questions like this. For many of the justices, they were faced with the government, including the Biden administration, saying that there are serious national security risks here. So they're not in a position necessarily just to dismiss those concerns. And for others on the court, they felt that really stipulating who owns a platform is not necessarily a deprivation of free speech. Mm-hmm. So this is an incredibly significant opinion for the law as well as for society. This is one of the most popular apps. It's now going to go in front of a president who is a fan of this site. He has said so in the past. It was integrated into his campaign. This is a president who really made his political career in part on social media. So it is ironic that it will fall to him to try to thread this needle, to find a way to resolve it.
But interestingly, Jonathan, a couple of things. One, the Supreme Court has been very frustrated with some of these cases that have come before them because they keep pushing it back and saying, Congress, you have a job to do. If you want this fixed, then you actually have to pass a law. We've been going back and forth with the Congress. That's how you got to Chevron deference, for example, because the Congress is not specific in what it wants. It was very specific this time. And a question I have is, does this case, in your opinion, affect other First Amendment cases? Does this set any precedent for anything else that is out there?
That is a great question, because I don't think we've ever had this type of unique free speech issue. I did have free speech concerns. In fact, Justice Gorsuch expressed some of those concerns during the oral argument, because you can see Congress messing around with the ownership of sites based on the content of the views of the company. So there's some legitimate free speech concerns there. What was different here was the foreign and national security elements. Those were well documented for the court. And the court is not allowed to make what are called political judgments. Under the political question doctrine, they leave certain political issues they leave generally political issues to the two political branches. I think some of the justices viewed this as that type of issue, that they accepted the national security representations of the government. And once they did that, they didn't feel like they could preserve access to this site and instead left it up to the government to negotiate here. This is also going to change things dramatically. You know, the Chinese were really hoping that the Supreme Court would come in on their side. They just lost a major bargaining chip here. They don't have a lot of cards left in their hand. They've got a lot of money on the table, and they're going to have to negotiate. And they're going to be negotiating with someone who is not only pretty sophisticated when it comes to social media, but someone who believes in the art of the deal. And I think that it's a challenge at the outset of the Trump administration that is going to be a defining moment for him.
Professor, stand by one moment here.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.